All right, so I'm going to show you guys how to do a very quick and easy pop art. Now, I've got this image here of Jack Black, but the main reason we're using this image is because he's got a nice, white, simple background. So you want to find a very simple background for one of your portrait photos, and the lighter it is, the better it is, because this is all going to have to do with light areas and dark areas. So the adjustment that we're going to make is something we haven't played with yet. It's called Threshold. All right, so you can click on this button here, or you can come down and choose Threshold either way. Now it's going to separate just black and white, and you can kind of choose the threshold. You can kind of jump around and say, okay, I want this much of the um, part of the histogram to show up as black and this much as white just by clicking and dragging around. So we can find that nice middle ground where we get plenty of detail that we can tell who or what we're looking at. So it's pretty simple, just kind of finding that sweet spot. And then the next thing is we're going to use the gradient map again. So again, either clicking the gradient map button or coming down here to choose gradient map. This is where we get to choose colors. It's just at black and white, so nothing changed. But we come in here and you can play with all kinds of colors. With pop art, what's going to work best is if we at least have a good spectrum of light colors to dark, or dark colors to light colors. So over here, lots of times people would just choose black because that's what makes most sense with shadows and dark areas. But let's say you want to choose just a really dark color. That'll probably work just best as long as there's a lot of contrast between the colors that we're choosing. So I've got a lighter blue as my background and then a much darker blue as what's on my subject for that. Now the next step is this is pop art, so we are kind of wanting to look a little bit more maybe like a painting, or so adding a little bit of character and texture to that. So we're going to add some pattern. So if I go to new fill layer, so I went to layer, new fill layer, and go to pattern. And they have some preset patterns, so it's just making a new mask. And I say, okay. They have some with leaves and trees. Those are going to be a little bit too obvious of patterns. It's not. It's a little bit too obvious that it's a tree or leaves. Grass or water is going to be a better bet for one of these you want to choose. And this is up to you. You can choose any of them that you want. And I'm going to go with this kind of watery one here. And you can change the angle. Won't really change what it looks like. You could change the scale. Just a tiny bit will make it zoom in more, zoom out more, so more or less detail. But obviously we don't want it to just be here, so this is where we choose a blending mode, and you can see how it will blend in there. Probably the best way to do this to just get a little bit of that texture and not lose any color is the overlay option. Okay, so overlay right there, and if you're thinking, okay, there's too much of that texture, I want a little bit less of that. With that layer selected, go to opacity and you just turn that down. We don't want it to even really be that noticeable. You can bring it way down to where it's just barely in there, not really the first thing that jumps out at you. Just adds a little bit of texture and character to your image so that it's not super flat. And that's about it. That's a really easy way to do a pop art editing style with your portrait photos.